Hello class 7, welcome to the second session of the chapter, the fourth chapter, atomic structure. Yesterday we talked about the structure of an atom and subatomic particles. But today I'm going to refer to the textbook and we'll discuss about atomic structure further. Okay? So we all know that what an atom is. An atom is the smallest particle of an element that can take part in a chemical reaction. So the word atomos was first coined by the Greek philosopher Democritus. So Democritus put forward the idea of his teacher Leucippus that matter was made up of tiny indivisible particles, and these were called atomos. Atomos means undivisible or indivisible. Indivisible cannot be divided. So, and they do not exist in a free state. But John Dalton in 1803 put forward his famous atomic theory. And then we'll talk about the Dalton's atomic theory in class 8. But for now, we will study the composition of an atom. So according to Dalton's atomic theory, all elements are made up of tiny, indivisible particles called atoms. Thus, an atom of an element is the smallest particle that exhibits all the properties of that particular element. So, atoms of different elements are different. Like, for example, hydrogen atom has all the hydrogen atoms are identical. Identical means exactly the same. So they have the property of hydrogen. Whereas oxygen atoms, all the oxygen atoms will have the same property. They are identical. They have the property of oxygen. Like, for example, hydrogen has the atomic number is 1. By means the number of electrons and or the number of protons 1 is 1 in hydrogen atom, whereas oxygen atom will have, all the oxygen atom will have 8 electrons, meaning the atomic number is 8, and it will also have 8 protons. So they have the property of a particular element. The atoms of the particular element will have the same property, whereas atoms of different elements will have different properties. Okay, we got to remember that. So, composition of an atom, we talked about it yesterday. Anyway, when John Dalton explained that atoms cannot be broken, he meant that they are not broken by chemical means. Later, experiments by a number of scientists have shown that atoms contain particles known as fundamental particles, and these are subatomic particles, and subatomic particles, as we all know, these are electrons, protons, and neutrons. Electrons, they are found outside the nucleus, and they revolve around the nucleus with a very high speed and are negatively charged, whereas protons are confined in the core, in the central part of an atom called nucleus, and it is positively charged. And the nucleus also has another subatomic particles called neutrons, and these neutrons, they do not have any charge. And electrons revolve around the nucleus with a very high speed, with a very great speed, in the fixed imaginary path called orbits. You got to know that. Now according to the book, we come to the characteristics of atom. So I'll just read through the book. I'm sure you will understand now. So atoms of most elements are very reactive and do not exist as free atoms. So atoms usually do not exist freely as free atoms. Like, for example, oxygen atoms, they combine together, two oxygen atoms, they combine together and forms a molecule of oxygen. Whereas a molecule of ozone consists of 3 atoms of oxygen. All right. Like for example, hydrogen also cannot exist, atoms of hydrogen cannot exist freely. All right. So they contain, a molecule of hydrogen contains 2 atoms of hydrogen. Since atoms do not usually exist in a free state, they combine to form atoms. Atoms, they combine to form molecules. Molecules of, there are 2 types of molecules. One is molecules of elements and the molecules of compound. In a molecule of element, the atoms of the same element combine to form the molecule of an element, whereas atoms of different elements, they combine to form the molecule of compounds. We'll come to that in detail later. Number 2 point, or the second point here, all atoms of an element are identical. Means, as I already told you, atoms of the same elements are exactly the same. Okay, they are exactly the same. Point number 3 says, an atom of one element is different from those of the other elements. Why? Because the atomic number is different. Like hydrogen, the atomic number is 1. Means it will have 1 electron and it will have 1 proton. Oxygen will have 8, atomic number is 8, so it will have 8 electrons and 8 protons. Similarly, chlorine, another gas, will have 17, atomic number is 17, so it will have 17 electrons and 17 protons. So the atoms of the same elements, they are identical, whereas the atoms of different elements, they are different. Why? Because they have, the atomic number is different. So an atom maintains its properties through all physical and chemical changes. For example, a piece of iron has the property of being attracted towards the magnet. If this piece is broken down into smaller pieces, still the smaller pieces are still attracted to the magnet. So it will not lose its property even if the elements are broken into small pieces. Okay, the properties of that particular, the pieces of these elements will all retain the atoms of the small particles of an element will retain the property of that particular element. They will not change. Now we come to a molecule. Now when we say, when I have to explain what a molecule is, it just simply means it is the smallest particle of matter. Okay, of matter made up of 2 or more atoms. 2 or more atoms of a particular element combine to form molecule. Like for example, we have an atom of oxygen. Suppose we have an atom of oxygen. 1 atom and 2 atoms of oxygen will combine to form the molecule of oxygen, that is O2. These are the atoms of oxygen. Okay. Now similarly, hydrogen. When we say hydrogen, 2 atoms of hydrogen, they combine to form 1 molecule of hydrogen. These are molecules of elements. For example, 3 atoms of oxygen. 3 atoms of oxygen forms ozone. Will form the molecule of ozone, that is O3. So these are molecules of different elements. Now, when we talk about the molecules of compounds now, let's for example, let's say sodium chloride, salt, common salt or sodium chloride. So 1 atom of sodium will combine with 1 atom of chlorine to form NaCl. All right. So similarly, 2 atoms of magnesium one atom of magnesium and 2 atoms of chlorine will form a molecule of magnesium chloride, another compound. For example, sugar, simple sugar, it is made up of, the formula would be C12H22O11, means 12 atoms of carbon combines with 22 atoms of oxygen and 11 atoms of oxygen. So 12 atoms of carbon, 22 atoms of hydrogen, 11 atoms of oxygen will combine to form one molecule of sugar. So one molecule of sugar is made up of 45, 2 plus 2, 1, 2 plus 2, 4 plus 1, 5, and 2, 3, 4. 45 atoms. So one molecule of sugar contains 45 atoms, whereas one molecule of oxygen contains only 2 atoms of oxygen. And ozone, one molecule of ozone will consist of 3 atoms of oxygen. One molecule of magnesium will consist of 3 atoms altogether, 1 atom of magnesium and 3 atoms of chlorine. But sugar contains, the one molecule of sugar consists of 12 atoms of carbon, 22 atoms of hydrogen and 11 atoms of oxygen. So these are molecules. So molecules are the small particles of matter which is made up of 2 or more atoms of the same or different elements combined together chemically. Is it okay? I'm sure you understood now, right? So a molecule, as you know, the atoms of many elements cannot exist independently. So therefore, if they combine with other atoms of the same element or other elements, they exist as molecules. So molecules could be molecules of element or molecules of compound, as we have already discussed. Therefore, a molecule is a group of 2 or more atoms that are chemically joined together. For example, 2 atoms of hydrogen combine to form one molecule of hydrogen, and 45 atoms of carbon, hydrogen and oxygen combines together to form one molecule of sugar. So a molecule, by the definition, it says a molecule is also the smallest particle of an element or a compound that is capable of independent existence. Now, atoms are like oxygen. Atom of oxygen do not exist independently, but 2 atoms of oxygen combine to form oxygen molecule and they are independent. Okay, that's what we use in breathing, right? Similarly, hydrogen atoms do not exist independently, but when they combine, the molecule of hydrogen exists independently. So that's what it means. So it will have molecule is capable of independent existence, and they show all the properties of that element or that particular compound. So the last portion we will do today is the characteristics of molecules. Molecules are formed by the combination of atoms of the same elements or different elements. So same or different elements combine to form the molecule of the element or the molecule of a compound. So you must be wondering what a compound is. Actually, a compound is a pure substance made up of 2 or more elements. All right, we'll come to that later. But for now, just to clear your doubt that what a compound is. A compound, again, I'll tell you, a compound is a pure substance made up of 2 or more elements combined together chemically in a fixed proportion. Like, for example, carbon dioxide, water, sugar, and there are millions and billions and trillions of compounds. We'll talk about it later. I'll tell you how we write the formula of different compounds also. You need not worry. All right. So the molecules of compounds has atoms of different elements combined in a fixed whole number ratio. For example, over here, molecule of a compound like sugar that we have seen, which tastes sweet, is one molecule of sugar is made up of 12 atoms of carbon, 22 atoms of oxygen, hydrogen, and 11 atoms of oxygen. So in the ratio of 12, 22 and 11. So the atoms combine in the form of whole number ratio. Atoms in a molecule are held together by chemical bonds. So we'll talk about chemical bonds. There is a bond between the molecules, okay? When they are, I'll tell you, if atoms of non-metals, they combine together, they form covalent bonds, whereas atoms of a metal and a non-metal combines to and gives rise to, it's held together by electrovalent bond. There are two types of bond. One is covalent bond and the other is electrovalent bond. We'll do that in class 8. Okay. So I'll tell you again. The atoms of atoms of the non-metals. Atoms of non-metals. Let's say carbon dioxide. Let's say carbon dioxide, CO2. Both made up of carbon and oxygen. So one atom of carbon and two atoms of oxygen. They are held together by covalent bond. But over here, there are two. One is a metal and the other is a non-metal. So if there is a metal and a non-metal combining to form a molecule, it is held together by electrovalent bond. Covalent bond between non-metals and electrovalent bond between a metal and a non-metal. And the last part, the point on the characteristic of molecules, the molecule of a substance can be represented by its molecular formula. For example, the molecule of a carbon dioxide is represented by a formula that is CO2. A molecule represents the how many elements it is a molecule of a compound is made up of, and how many atoms are there in the formation of that particular molecule. Like for example, carbon dioxide formula is CO2. It is made up of one atom of carbon and two atoms of oxygen, held together by covalent bond, because it forms a molecule between two non-metals. Now over here, sodium chloride, NaCl, is made up of one atom of chlorine, one atom of sodium and one atom of chlorine, and held together by electrovalent bond, since it is a bond formed between a metal and a non-metal. Similarly here, magnesium chloride, the formula is MgCl2. It says the formula will make it clear that in the formation of a molecule of magnesium chloride, one atom of magnesium combines with two atoms of chlorine. Cl2 means two atoms of chlorine to form a molecule of magnesium chloride held together by electrovalent bond. So this is all about today's class. We will further discuss about molecules of elements and atomicity and molecules of compounds a little bit in detail. Okay? I hope you understood whatever we dealt with today. Have a good day.